Koan number 60, Momentum. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Momentum is one of my best pieces in or outside of 108 Koans. It definitely stands up on its own outside of the context of the Koans. It's unlike a lot of the other Koans in that it's definitely like a constructed piece of video performance art. There's a lot of editing involved here. So it's not like, I've talked about before that I want to do things that people can repeat, that each piece kind of serves as a set of instructions essentially that you can do on your own, and that's not really the case here. So it kind of stands out a little bit. It's this kind of dual channel video, edited so that they're side by side. I was really liking the idea of having videos that were different sizes than the normal, 4:3 or 16:9. With HTML5 video, you can create a video size of anything that you want. So what that means is like this video is actually coded as part of the website. There's a video element here, and so I have these video files hosted on my web server, as opposed to putting them on YouTube or something. On YouTube, every video is going to be the same, 16:9 ratio. But using HTML5 video, I can make all kinds of other dimensions. So that's what I did here to get these two videos side by side. We have the one camera stationary, and then the other camera I'm holding as I run and jump at this no trespassing sign. And this sign really struck me. Like the entire idea for this Koan was based on seeing this sign that's kind of like just in the middle of this field, and that there's all of this space on before the sign, and like the sign itself like seemed like this weird kind of arbitrary barrier right in the middle of this field. So I had the idea based on that like, what if I just ran at this sign and I couldn't get past it. And then the title Momentum really, I guess, calls attention to the absence of the frames after this cut, because obviously unedited, I can't stop. My body cannot actually stop that quickly. The momentum of me running forward obviously carries me past the sign every time. So what you don't see is me, like in that last one, I was actually running and jumping. So you don't see me like landing and falling and rolling and, landing on my knee and rolling around the grass. This was an extremely hot day. I think I talked last week about the two paths where I was walking on crutches being like extremely hot. And this was recorded around the same time, summer of 2012. It was a very, very hot summer. So, yeah, I'm like really exhausted by the end of this. So this is another example of a koan where I'm totally exhausting myself physically, and doing it in a way that's like this combination of determination and desperation. And then there's this ending. It's kind of an enigmatic ending where I'm just like so totally exhausted. I lay on the ground and set the camera down. And this is like a coda. It kind of like breaks the pattern of everything else that you've seen so far. And then I finally just walk past the sign. So I think everybody kind of takes away a different meaning behind that. How I always think about this is, I don't have like a specific interpretation of it that I adhere to, but like I think it's interesting just structurally that up to this point, like I'm carrying this camera, I'm holding it, and this camera is almost like part of my body, and it's also like the point of view. It's kind of represents the viewer, right? This is what the viewer sees, and it's not necessarily like my point of view because it's not like I'm holding the camera like right in front of my face. I'm swinging my arms around. So like I said, it's really like an extension of my body rather than my eyes. And it kind of doubles as the viewer. So then at the end, when I set it down, there's this break where the viewer had this kind of unity with the camera as an extension of my body. And as soon as I set it down, that's broken. And my body as the performer and the audience viewpoint are now separate. And when I walk off past the sign, it's like I'm leaving the audience behind. And that's the only way that I'm actually able to walk past. What that means exactly, I'll leave up to you to make any interpretations there. But that's momentum. And I don't know, I kind of bumbled through that, but I hope that was something. Koan number 61, Ice Water, is, I think, a fascinating semantic puzzle. The question is, what are we witnessing here when this water comes out of the spigot? It's labeled ice water. So how much power does the label have over what this actually is? Presumably there's ice in the fountain thing before it comes out of the spigot. So once it leaves the spigot, does it retain its identity as ice water even though there's no ice in the cup? Or is this spigot like a threshold where the water changes identity in spite of the label? Koan number 62, Meditation on the Holy Mystery of the Road City, Part 5, the conclusion. Although we will see the Road CD pop up again later on, this is the final installment of the meditation series. And the shocking conclusion is that apparently the Road CD got its holes from being in the road. Although we don't see that for sure. There's a kind of a cliffhanger ending here where we don't know the ultimate fate of the Road CD. Because it disappears. So by day 2, you see that it has this kind of star-shaped crack, which looks a lot like the pattern that was around the holes in the original Road CD. So mystery solved? Question mark. Koan number 63, 3 memories. This is a video in 3 parts, each one dedicated to 3 of my best, closest friends during grad school in Carbondale. So each section of the video is just a static shot of a location where something happened, a memorable and significant thing happened with me and the person that it's dedicated to. 3 of my favorite memories with these 3 people. I'm not going to tell you what the memories are specifically. I think it's more interesting for you, the viewer, to fill in the details, fill in the whole story, not just the details. And also, it's not really important to the viewer what the memories are. That's kind of, it's for me and my friends to know, and for the viewer to just kind of think about space and, you know, the specificity of a location and maybe the aura that location has when it's attached to a specific memory. Carbondale's kind of a desolate place sometimes if you point the camera in the right direction or the wrong direction, I guess. You know, I'm not sure actually if Darren or Adrian or Danielle know specifically what memory this is. Like if they can look at this location and know that, oh, this, yeah, I know what Derek's referencing here. Danielle probably. The Dairy Queen there, I think she probably knows what that's about. Darren and Adrian, I'm not sure if they recognize it, but Never asked them. Anyway, that's 3 memories. It's, I'd say, this one is like kind of near and dear to my heart, just because it takes me back to Carbondale and to times with 3 people that I really loved and that I don't talk to as much as I should anymore. Koan number 64, Solo for Door. One of the rare audio-only Koans. This was an improvisation that I recorded of a particularly squeaky door. And listening to it now, I'm amazed that 2 pieces of wood rubbing together can make all of these sounds. It's pretty incredible. Sometimes it sounds like a door and sometimes it doesn't. You know, sometimes it just becomes totally a abstraction of sound. I can't remember what door this was, and I didn't make a note of it at the time. I think probably it was the front door of our house on Rigdon, or maybe not the front door, maybe like a bedroom door. That rings a bell. A bedroom door of the house that Sylvia and I lived in on Rigdon Street in Carbondale. Man, I'm really enjoying listening to this. So, I like the idea of using a squeaky door as an instrument. It makes all kinds of sounds. For, you know, frequency. There's a really wide range of pitches that it produces. And if you have a squeaky door in your house, you probably just ignore it and actually tune it out, right? Like, you know, you just open and close it every day, and it doesn't even, like, register to your brain as a sound usually because you're just so used to it. So I like the idea of just, like, calling attention to that, like paying attention suddenly to this thing that you that your brain just kind of tunes out, and exploring that, and something you can try at home. Koan number 65, strip created by cutting with 2 pairs of scissors. This is a silly, fun thing you can do. It's kind of a Dada-inspired exercise, this nonsensical act of taking an object, a tool, and using it in such a way that it almost kind of defeats its own purpose. And it actually created a pretty cool shape here. If this were if this were something surrealists had done, you know, they would kind of cut absent-mindedly and then looked at the resulting shape and try to interpret that somehow. Imagine what does that shape look like, and then maybe like fill in the details. And of course, Dada artists are known for creating cut-up techniques where they literally cut up either text or images and then rearrange them. So yeah, this is kind of a Dadaist, surrealist inspired little instruction. Koan number 66, Resembling Myself, Body Panorama. This is kind of a hack for the panorama feature of a smartphone camera, where I think most phones have this feature nowadays where you can move the camera around a scene and it will take several pictures and then automatically kind of stitch all those photos together, so you get one long photo. And I just messing around one day, I realized that if you point the camera inward towards yourself, then the camera, I don't know, gets pretty confused, I guess, and tries to stitch your body together in all kinds of weird and interesting ways. Koan number 67, comparison of the amount of popcorn kernels into baskets. This is just a photograph. As the title says, a photograph of 2 baskets that had popcorn in them. This was at a bar in Carbondale. I forget the name of the bar. The Cellar? It was like the grad student bar in Carbondale. And we got some popcorn for our table, 2 baskets of popcorn, and one had a bunch of kernels in it and one didn't. And I thought that was interesting and took a picture of it. Someone once told me that I should change the title of this to something like more poetic, because some of the other Koan titles, like, I don't know, have a little more poetry to them, I guess. And they said that this one is like too literal and too almost scientific, and that's exactly what I was going for. Something that sounds scientific, like it would be the caption of a figure in a scientific paper or something, but that it's like just something totally mundane instead. Koan number 68, background check, is a blank page. So if you haven't figured out already what this koan is, there's a little bit of a spoiler here, I guess. So take some time, click around, see if you can figure it out, and then come back. Okay, so background check. It's another silly pun. I cannot resist them. You're only going to see what this koan is if you go back and forth between the different pages. So it's the stripe, my crazy striped background on my website that everyone hates because it makes them dizzy, which was intentional, I guess. Especially if you scroll up and down, it's kind of nauseating. But yeah, so on this page, this page and this page only, the stripes are a little bit farther apart. And that's the koan. So this koan is the one that totally ties all of 108 koans to this design of my website. It relies on this crazy background image. So if ever, hopefully soon, I ever redesign my website, then I'll have to retain kind of like a separate section for 108 koans that has this design still. So anyways, yeah, this is, again, much like the, what was that, Koan 64 Solo Fodor, where I was talking about suddenly paying attention to something that you normally ignore or something that you normally tune out. When you first go to my website, like, the background images are like, and as you kind of get used to it, you start to tune it out. And this koan is just like a little kind of poke, a little prod, like say, hey, remember that background that your brain learned to tune out? Well, pay attention to it again. Koan number 69, making title tags for other people's art. This is a sped up video of me making these tags. I had volunteered to do this for everybody for an MFA exhibition, and I decided to record myself doing it as this kind of, I guess, acknowledgement of the work that artists have to do outside of actually making the art. And I guess I was interested in showing that, like, I'm using paper and ink and glue and cutting these things, the same kind of tools and actions that I might do as an artist to make stuff, to make artwork. And these things are going on the wall of a gallery. And so I was just kind of like, I guess, playing with that and saying like, hey, what if I take this work that I'm doing as an artist and recontextualize it as artwork? Not to be too punny about that. That wasn't really an intentional kind of pun thing, but it happened. Let's just move past it. Okay. So I think this was probably inspired by a show I did probably a year or so before this, where Adrian Foster and I collaborated on this kind of complex intra-textual series of objects, and we both kind of curated our own set of objects from our house, and then stood amongst each other's things for the duration of a 3-hour exhibition. And there was a lot of like meaning behind each object, each thing that was in that for her, for the objects that she chose. And then I defiantly chose just random objects that didn't have any particular meaning to me. But of course, they were objects from my own house or my own apartment, so they did reveal something about me. Anyways, the point is, we created these tags for each of the different objects that we were displaying, and I had never done this before. So Adrian is the one who showed me how to make these things,